I have to fix my pockets. Hi, guys! So, welcome to Sip of Solidarity Thursday night. Hope your week is going good. So, we haven't been on. I feel like we haven't been on for a couple weeks, but I guess it's only been like 2 weeks. I went to Hilton Head and got to be in salt water and swim in the beach with my kids. And it is the only Disney. So, after you've done Disney a couple times, go to Hilton Head because there's no rides and there's no pretty people and everything, but there's still Mickey, Pluto, these shaped bushes. Like you have to have shaped bushes, and it's the beach. So
yeah, it can't be
Hilton Head Disney is definitely a winner. And I got to go to Savannah and meet Forrest Gump. Like, wasn't it real Forrest Gump? But I keep telling people it was a real Forrest Gump, and I sat on a bench with them. So enough about that. Hope you guys had a good couple weeks away. We have a lot of good topics coming up. And great guest. But tonight, our focus, so Veterans Day is Monday. It's Monday, right?
Yes.
Monday, yes. And all the schools are doing their veteran programs. You know, we're going to hear a lot about it. And I really wanted to bring some light to kind of maybe the stories we don't hear when we talk about Veterans Day. We honor our fallen soldiers. We, thank them for their services. And we really just reflect on all that they do. But I wanted to bring two very dear friends of mine, that, can kind of give us a little bit of insight on what life is like in a soldier home, what it's like to be married, what it's like to have children after they come home, and those obstacles in that. So tonight we are joined. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself, and then we can kind of just briefly start to unpack some of your stories. All right? And make sure you guys press the share button so that we can reach some new audience members that might benefit from what we're talking about. So go ahead. We'll start with you.
Okay. So my name is Deidre. Hi, guys. I kind of fit into this because I have two boys. They're 6 and 7, and their dad was an Afghan war vet. We probably met back in high school, spent a ton of time together for 6 years total. Mason was born in 2012, Nolan born in 2013. So we kind of just got a big jump on our family. He got out of the Army in 2012. So most of our relationship foundation, I guess, more while he was overseas. Wrote a lot of letters, so we got to know each other through letters, which I think really, really worked for us. And then he came home, and we kind of went from military life to civilian life really quick, mix in the kids and everything. So we kind of, within that year of him coming home, we kind of got blasted with
Did a lot, yeah.
Civilian life, family life, working through PTSD, working through just trying to keep a normalcy in the house, which obviously was a huge struggle. I read a ton of books, went to all these classes.
But you never really can prepare yourself. So
I was going to say.
What was his role in the military? What did he do?
Yeah, so he left the Army, as a sergeant. He was infantry, so he was on the front line. Most of the times he volunteered to be the team leader, so anytime there was any kind of mission of any kind, he was always volunteered to be the front too. So he saw everything first. He was one of the gunners. He was always in the action, which I completely totally loved. So, respected him for it. He always stepped up to the plate, which is just awesome that I can tell my kids that. So
yeah, paints that glow of him. Awesome. Yes. Can you tell us a little bit of your story and how you fit into our show tonight?
Yeah, I'm Jennifer. So my husband and I, we married in 2002. Wow. And so a month after we married, he left for the Army for boot camp and then all the training. He went to officer school, so he ended up resigning as a captain. And so, a year later, that's when we went to our first station, and then about a month after.
So I didn't realize that. So you actually traveled with the Army, moved with the Army.
Just one time. We were on station one time up in Fort Drum.
Okay.
And so once we got there, he left for Afghanistan, and he came back about 6 months later because his unit was already over there. And then, so adjusting then, him coming back, and it was definitely an adjustment because I had to take over, and
You have children at that time?
we did not have children
Okay.
at the time. So, and then he left. So about a year and a half later, so 4, he left, right? No, 2005. Sorry, in 2005 he left for Iraq, and so he was, and I was pregnant with
Okay.
my firstborn. So, and then he came back. Oh gosh, what, a year later, like June of 2006. So like our son was already 6 months old, and then he was transitioning out of the Army then. So
Okay.
he stayed for another. So I moved back home, and he would come home on weekends, and then he had to transition out for about 6 months. So
Okay.
then coming back was definitely
Coming back home. Yeah.
it was
It's that transition.
because he didn't have a job and stuff like that. So
So, quick question, because I'm wondering this, and we did not pre-talk about this, but I couldn't do it. You guys got pregnant and had babies, and they're in a different country. What does that look like? Like, I got the joy of them. He was at every ultrasound. He was at the doctor's appointments. Like, you knew that you were supporting them, and it was great what they were doing, but you walked that alone. And I hear this often. I have a friend, and I don't know if she's still on, Lauren. That was the first friend I walked that with a little bit of kind of seeing, like, she just stepped up, and that's all you could do. And the strength that came out of her, I was impressed seeing. I hope she's watching, because I've always valued. Josh is a very good friend of ours, and he went away, I want to say, for like, it was only like a year, but it seemed like
it's a long
20
time.
years, and I'm not even, but it was impressive to see her do that. So, like, how do you even prepare yourself? How do you have any words for anybody who's watching that's kind of like on that?
I really did not prepare myself. I remember, so he came home like a couple of days before I was giving birth. We got it myself induced, and he left when Aiden was about 2 weeks old, and that was like one of the hardest goodbyes.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, it was just so heart-wrenching. And then he missed everything. I mean, think about it, all the 6 months.
All their first smile, their
Yeah.
first walk, their first step.
Yeah. So.
And you're saying you can write letters, but was there videos sent? Can you send?
No,
do they have cell phones?
It's not the same. You basically learn to cope with what you have.
Yeah. We had email, so I would send him like 30 seconds of videos, because anything bigger than that we couldn't. I would do like a lot of videos of like him laughing and whatever. So yeah,
That's really awesome too.
yeah.
Okay, so they then come home. What does that look like? That transitioning. I mean, you guys jumped right in, had kids, and here's life, and you guys moved back home. So Douglas had to move back into real life. What did it look like finding a job, getting them back to, we have bedtimes and
Oh yeah.
Well, for me, I feel like there was no transition. I feel like it's literally night and day. You get out, they don't really debrief you as much as they should. So they kind of like send you home like, hey, thanks for everything you did.
There's no
Have
like
fun.
exit counsel. So when I go to counseling,
there's supposed to be, but there's not not
Really?
an in-depth one that there should be.
Yeah.
I
So,
did not realize
to
that.
me, yeah, they literally.
Especially for what you're seeing.
Absolutely. You would think there'd be this long process of debriefing and therapy before they actually send you
Oh
out.
yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
and
they
even
literally.
it would even help with jobs.
Exactly.
Yeah,
There's
there's
resources, but there's not really. You have
Okay.
to jump through hoops. They don't just have it like, hey, here's everything you're gonna need to do great the next 6 months. Thank you for everything. It's kind of just like, hey, thank you for everything. Hope you do well, in your new life. So there was really no transition.
Wow.
There was him going to Fort Bragg, and then him coming home, and then just waking up that Monday and resuming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday like I did. So there was no transition at all, in my opinion. So it was extremely difficult.
Yeah.
I went away for a week and I came home and it took me days to transition.
Exactly.
So I can't even imagine what that is like for them and the stress that they undergo. And
Well, and for me, like I remember I was going through really a lot of anxiety because, just being the first time mom, and I'm like, oh, you're doing it wrong, So I remember going through that struggle, and then him barking orders. Well,
that's when he was normal.
Well, not that he was really barking, but he was just trying to lead the home. Really, that's what it was.
Yeah.
But I took it as, you're telling me what to do.
Yeah.
Well, and when you guys
I've been
are
doing it,
running
so
it
don't come in and-
yourself,
right.
and then he comes back in and is like, nope, now I'm leading.
It's
I
hard.
can, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is tough. And I think a lot of that almost breaks like that relationship that you've had that whole time apart.
Oh,
like
yeah.
everybody thinks like, oh my God, I can't wait till they get home and it's gonna be so much better.
Yeah.
But like she said, like you're in this routine
Yeah.
and you get along with them where they are and where you are, but when you come back together, it's like you have to
relearn each other.
Co-parent, face to face.
And would you
This is what he
say,
likes, this is what he doesn't like.
you know, when they came home, they're different people.
They are. Yeah.
Absolutely.
They're different people. So you really are jumping in a relationship with somebody totally different that you have children with.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
so what you would say to that one person before, like, here, do it this way, they're not going to take it the same. So the conflict is different, the romance is different, the conversation is different. It's very rarely the same when they come back. It's a challenge for everyone involved.
okay.
We have a question from the watch party audience.
Yeah.
They are asking, there's a lot of times where you see this depicted in movies in Hollywood.
Yeah.
How real is that? So when you see those scenarios where the guy comes home or the gal comes home and there's these issues, I guess the question is, can you guys even go to those kind of movies? Can you watch those? I mean, what is that?
Well, that's what we're gonna go into. So now they've transitioned home. They have PTSD. They're trying to find jobs. They're stressed, anxiety, all of that. What did that look like? Did you?
Well, part of the problem is too is like, at least for me, I didn't know it was PTSD. I didn't realize that's what he was going through. Like, it took me a while for probably even.
They
him
need
to
like
understand.
wives and girlfriend counseling when they come back too. I feel
Yeah.
like.
Oh, absolutely.
Do they have that?
Do they?
I mean, the VA will offer you tons of resources, but the problem is they're not as easy to really access as everyone. You know what I mean? There's tons of resources, but when they come home, it's like an overnight thing. You don't have 5 weeks until they come home to start. It's almost like you have to do it together. You have to go once a week, so it takes months to really get to where you need to get.
So looking at the movies, most movies that I have watched that shows them coming home, they're angry, they're throwing things, they hear noises, they're jumping up with nightmares, night sweats. You come home to a baby, that baby crying, they have short patience. How real is that?
Well, Douglas never had short patience with the babies. Definitely not. But he definitely suffered from sleep and like the shakes and insomnia type thing and severe depression and anxiety and stuff like that. So he ended up. He was like on a cocktail of drugs, at one point, just
to try to get past.
Yeah, just try to deal with it. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest thing, like you said, was the night. There's no like sleeping calmly. They're used to sleeping in all this stuff and things going off and things happening.
Yeah.
So
and getting up at any time.
Yeah, again, that transition was not smooth because they can't just come home, relax for 2 weeks. It's constant. 4th of July, we couldn't do fireworks. We didn't go see fireworks. It was extremely very, very, very calm in the house at all times. Night sweats during the night. Drenched in sweat. And with coming from where her and I are coming from, there's no training that will get you prepared to handle that at 3 a.m. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'm just waking him up to move him from the couch to the bed. I did it one time and never again. He was just like, you can't wake me up out of my sleep. If I'm sleeping here, you have to leave me here. Like, don't strike my shoulder. Don't nicely, even if you're just so nicely kissing my forehead, it's startling me. Like, don't do it. So I couldn't. So everything changed. For me, I'm just like, I'm doing a nice thing. Why wouldn't I let you move? But to him, it was like a huge deal. Every time, he was touched or something in his sleep, he would think the worst thing, and it would just completely go from 0 to 100 really quick. So it was a huge transformation. To me, I'm just like, okay, so that's now affecting us. We can't even sleep in the same bed and relax and watch a movie because you are content where you are and you can't be bothered. So it was just, it was extremely difficult.
Did that get better the longer they were home? Did some things get better?
In my opinion, no. I think it got significantly worse. I think that there's too much of a lag time from when they get out to when they actually get the therapy they need. And within that time, he's self-medicated. He's tired of feeling the way that he felt, and I'm obviously not educated enough on how to handle him, and I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know how to talk him out of his problems. So I only helped for so much, and then finally he's just gotten to a point where he's like, I need to feel good. Like, I have to feel better. I have to not feel what I feel if you want me to come home and be, you know what I mean? So
well, and that's what I want to get to too, is the fact, okay, most human beings that love you, after they've snapped at you a few times, or after they realize they are not the man they left, that's going to add more depression. That's going to add, it's my fault. It's all me. they're not going to love me anymore. They're going to leave me. So then they do turn to self-medication. So what did that look like for you? When did that start setting in early, of kind of where he just felt like he needed something to get by?
He probably used alcohol a lot just to help with the sleep, honestly. I mean, that's really all he would do. I mean, but yeah, the lag time, like as she was mentioning, the lag time from when they actually get out to actually get help. I don't have good opinions about the VA. I really, really don't. They just, I don't like it.
No, and that's okay.
So, and that's something, I want to, we have quite a bit of viewers watching right now. And if you rewatch this, like I have no experience in this, except for I have some great friends that are in the program. If you could kind of like, what do you think, like chime in on this and let us know your thoughts on this, but why is there a lag time? To me, I feel, did you know that they were coming home like a week before at least, or something? I think they should be quarantined actually for like a week of coming home.
Absolutely.
Not quarantined like in our pad, but they should be like, you come back to Ohio, you go to this camp for a week.
Reintegration.
Exactly.
I feel that you should do that, and I feel that people should be coming to your house 2 to 3 times a week, because you just served our country. You just were such an honor, and the jobs that they do and what they're asked to do, and they just to throw them back in society. You're not doing any justice for our system at all.
Well, if you want to expand on the VA, that's okay. My uncle and dad both go, and I know both are given the opportunity to have a funeral plot as well at the military cemetery as well. So if you want to expand on that.
Well, and that's what I want to do. Kind of, why do you think there is that delay? And then what is offered? What are you given from the VA? Like, you're not given the counseling right out.
I think
it takes forever just to make an appointment. Like,
it's ridiculous.
I mean, even like my new husband, I mean, he's trying to make an appointment because he's having, we don't know, allergy issues, and they couldn't even get him in until January. And it's just like, it takes, and this is an allergy that, we have trouble breathing. So it's just like, they're bogged down. I don't know. Do they not have enough staff? Is it the government funding, where they don't staff enough? I really don't know. But even then, I just remember at one point where Douglas finally told me one day, I'm depressed, and like he wanted to kill himself. And I just begged him to go to my psychiatrist at the time. I'm like, because I'm like, whatever they're putting you on is not working, Douglas. Because he was already trying to get the pills and go see a psychiatrist at the VA. I'm like, obviously this is not working. Please go see my psychiatrist. And once he did, he finally got the right medication, and he was getting, better. I mean, still dealing with things, but definitely much better.
Do they have to go to a VA doctor or a VA hospital? Is that where the medical is? Like, why do they have to go through?
They don't have to, but I have my own insurance, and so he was on my insurance.
Okay.
But that's the other thing, is you get out and you immediately lose TRICARE and you're on this VA insurance. That's not that great. Mm-hmm. And you only get free care if you go to that certain VA, which is backed up for months. So,
so that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so it is
so
free.
It's not as available as it could be, you know what I mean? And it's sad. And
I can understand, not that it's acceptable, because I can understand the doctor's appointments and stuff like that, but mental health is very, very important.
Yeah, so I think Cindy.
Yeah, so Cindy just commented, new laws, I thought, just allowed that they could go anywhere, not just the VA.
Well, so again, my new husband, like, we went to a hematologist appointment yesterday, and she was telling him, like, if we can't get you in within 30 days, we have to outsource you to another doctor.
So refer you. If you have a referral, I think is where that comes into play.
And of course, they're probably
backed up even longer.
Maybe, I don't know.
So after the self-medication or self-medicating, alcohol use, all of that. So both of them suffered PTSD. Both had a lot of similar.
I don't know how to.
Oh, Rick just got on. Just wave at the camera. Hi, Rick.
I'm like, what do I do on the phone?
She has no idea. So okay, so they're home now, and you're seeing PTSD. You're seeing all this. Time goes by. Both of yours got into self-medicating using drugs. Can you kind of elaborate a little of when you felt like that started happening and then kind of where that went? Like, why do you feel like we hear this often that this same drug is what all of our veterans are turning to get a little bit more because alcohol, that, you know, they move their way up. So,
yeah. Well, for me, you know, we had a pretty volatile marriage the last couple years, and we were separated for about 6 months. And I remember I told him in January of 2014 that I wanted a divorce. And later on, like maybe a month later, he was seeing, you know, Pastor Dale from our church, and he begged me to go to a session, so I did. But I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna say anything. So anyway, so I leaned on God at that time, and I really did hear God saying to me, just one more time, Jennifer. And so I allowed him back home. There was rules between us, and it was by February of the next year, so February of 2015, like February or March, is when I started thinking something was going on.
Something changed.
Yeah, and I couldn't pinpoint it. And I finally discovered at the very beginning of May, he was doing drugs, and he only admitted to ever doing pills. He never admitted to
anything else,
even though.
What was his reasoning for the pills? He was depressed.
No reason. He was ashamed when I caught him, and you know, he cried, and I think, you know, he was struggling. He really was. He was really struggling. He had a lot of demons, and you know, just the PTSD. I mean, I really feel like that's what did it. You know, he just never felt like he measured up. You know, he had a lot of pressure, probably between me and his parents and society type thing. And so when I discovered that, you know, he wouldn't go seek rehab. You know, his parents offered to pay and send him. He denied it, and then so I said, well, I can't.
You have 2 children.
Yeah, I'm like, I cannot let you be here with the kids. So I moved out, and hoping that would help change his mind. And a month and a half later, he died. So, and it was fentanyl, and later on, I found out it was cocaine as well. So that was pretty tough to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So quick break. I'm getting emotional over here because
our producer's getting emotional.
Well, and I'm allowed. I know both these ladies very well. Okay. So Rick's on the watch party. And he reached out and he said, "Hey, just letting you know, Jen, that we are watching. We love you." So
thank you, honey.
I'm all like verklempt.
Our producer gets a little more emotional than I do.
He's such a sweetheart.
He is. And so, and I want to hear from you, but I want to kind of give, so you don't think that the PTSD ever got better?
No.
And over time, it broke up your family. And then, you know, even, did he go to some counseling or after it was available for the VA? But
I think he went to the VA, but we also did
regular
counseling, through like our church.
And I can tell you, Pastor Dale's awesome.
Oh my gosh, I love him.
So, but in the end, he felt like he just couldn't beat it. He couldn't beat the demons, and he couldn't beat that. You know, I hear stories like they just keep seeing things and hearing things, and you brought up something that we actually talked a little bit about before the show, and I really didn't get it until right now. Our producer sometimes says stuff, and I tune him out completely. But you had said that he never felt he measured up to their expectations.
Right.
And I kind of want to bring up what we were talking about. I feel that when they are over there and they're, you know, whatever position they have, whether they're on the front line or they're just the normal job of preparing everything, they really are the best. People honor them in a different way. Thank you for, you know, they are respected in a different light and level. Then when they come home, they have all of these expectations and all of these things to live up to. That's really hard for us to do as normal people, civilians. Someone who was, you know, had these highest honors, and that to then come and have to live up to those expectations, why wouldn't we think they would be suffering from deep, deep depression? Why wouldn't we think they felt that they weren't enough? And the struggles of getting a normal job and the struggles of being a parent and all of those things. And so I bring this up just because I want viewers to realize they might have had this amazing military career and they may not be as successful, but they're still people. And we have no idea what they're fighting inside or at home or what they feel that they need to use to cope with those things. So
we just had a comment from Krista Runyon.
Yeah.
You know Krista?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jennifer, for very vulnerably and courageously sharing your story. I'm praying this and Douglas Life Struggles will help others and that people will gain new awareness.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I love her.
And that's exactly why we're here. We know that these are just two women that I am very close to and I've lived life with. And if I have two women that have very, very similar stories in my life like that, then this is all over, guys. Like there are people in your life experiencing this, and just to have the knowledge and the empathy and all of that. So tell us kind of what that spiral down looked like for you and your boys.
Something stuck out that you said too is how they don't feel like they measure up to what they're expected. And I think that's probably why and where Lewis coming home had this downfall. When NBC followed us for a while and did this documentary on us, they kind of zeroed in how he had a lot of guys in his troop that died. Specifically this 19-year-old kid who just got married. His wife was pregnant at home. His first tour, he was 3 days in and he stepped on an IED and died. Gosh. And, Lewis came home and he was just like, this is before we had kids. He was just like, we don't have kids. That should have been me. Like, I volunteered to be at the front line. I volunteered to be up front. He was 10 people behind me. Why didn't I, you know what I mean? Like, this is my second tour. I've been 27 months in and he's not even a month in. So I think over the 27 and a half months that he was there, I mean, you see like a revolving door of people in and out and people that don't make it, people that get, legs or limbs taken, you know what I mean? So he's coming home in one piece to, no marriage, nothing significantly committed, where all these people have families already. So I think a lot of that guilt really sunk into him. And no matter how much I tried to talk him up, like, you're meant to be here. We love you. We're going to have a family. Like, it's fine. In his head, he volunteered to do that job. So to him, he should have been at risk just as much as anybody else. So he constantly put himself on this pedestal and couldn't really bring himself down to realize, like, you're just, you're normal, and you're not normal sometimes, but you are allowed to live a normal life. You don't have to feel guilty for the things that happen there. But it's also hard to leave that there. You can't, just like a job. You leave work at work. Sometimes you can't do that. You bring it home. And so I think he brought that home. And it took 3 or 4 months to get him into a psychiatrist. And, just small things like money missing, coming home late from work, or not coming home from work after a while. After we had a kid, there would be no diaper showing up, formula, would just small things that didn't make sense. And I just flat out asked him one day, what are you doing? And it literally took me probably 2 hours of looking at him face to face. The last hour I was in tears. I'm not leaving this room until you tell me what is going on. And he finally just told me, I've been using drugs and I'm so far in, I'm already far in. And so at that point, it had probably been going on behind my back for months at least. If I go back to the first time I noticed something different. So to me, we're not just catching this at the head, we're already down to the body. So we're going to need more than just a session once a month,
Oh, definitely.
You push them to get help, but they don't just go and do it. So you have this whole 6 months of like trying to drag them in and you can't make them do it. So you have to wait till they feel like it. And I mean, he's detoxed in front of me several times. He's been in and out of rehab several times. He went to jail twice after we had our kids. So we went through this huge roller coaster, huge long custody battle. And it's extremely sad because he was this hero, and not that he's still not, but he was put on this pedestal of doing great things. And he came home and did a lot of bad things because he was under the influence of this thing.
Very good friends. And
It's back.
oh,
I didn't even see it live on.
I don't know if it's back. Somebody text me and tell me what you see currently. Please.
I would like being your news feed.
No, you're back.
All right, I think we're back. Thank you if you stayed tuned during that break. That was not planned, but now it will be planned. Please send us a couple messages if you can see us and we're good. And hi, Josh. I was just talking about your family. So we're going to just resume where we were and hope that you can see us. So what I was saying was that, and the reason I brought this up, my children's father and Lewis and his brother, they were not very good friends, but acquaintances through this time. And so there was a couple conversations that I recall of Matt coming home, because our babies were very young at that time, saying, I only got some of the information,
Right.
of course, at that time.
Bits and pieces.
Yeah, but saying how Lewis felt like he wasn't enough and that he was never going to be a good dad. I remember those were the conversations that he constantly came home, and he was like, I'm not going to be a good dad. I'm not doing anything for my boys and stuff like that. And to Matt, that really affected him and upset him because, even though they were all running together, he saw what they were doing. So, but then with that, Lewis's brother, kind of went through a roller coaster of the same thing. Yeah. He is still with us, but, has a very similar story in his coming home and all of that. And I really have not heard an update recently in the last year. But this is happening all the time. Absolutely. So you questioned him and then noticed that our mysterious hand is now coming in to steal drinks.
Thank you, mysterious hand.
Our podcast viewers are probably like, what is this mysterious hand?
Go?
Don't worry. If you ever want to be on our show, listeners, there will be this mysterious hand that automatically comes and fills your alcoholic beverages while the show is going on. So that is a fun perk of being part of Sip of Salt Party. So I love that we can add some humor in this. And we do have a few viewers. I'm so glad that Josh is on. Josh will be able to actually give us, so Josh was the one I was talking about that went away, that it seemed like 20 years and came back.
Yeah.
So once you sat down and you got this out, and then he's seeking help and he's all that, and you're going through this roller coaster, your relationship then, due to the safety of your children, needed to end because of everything going on. And so kind of resume there.
Yeah, I would say that I obviously try not to separate. I did try to separate him from the addict. He is a good person. He can be a great dad. I knew those things.
Absolutely.
But after a while, the using on the weekends or when he felt bad turned into using all the time. So there was really, and that's what I expected. But I was hoping we could catch it kind of on a good day where he would just be fed up with it. But we went through this 2 years of him trying to get in and out of rehab, finding a good one that fit for him, getting him to follow up with the VA, which always was an issue. And
if there's a lag,
right,
you don't get a lag when there's drug use. Like that's not healthy.
There's such an epidemic; they don't really filter them in as quickly as they should. And I totally understand there's a lot of it going on. But when you have a veteran who has seen more than the average person, I feel like not that their life is more important, but I feel like they should prioritize. These people needed it before this guy who lived here, Akron his whole life and hasn't been anywhere. So I feel like the VA failed him a little bit in getting him where he needed to be. His choices are his choices. But we went through this whole thing. He finally got to a really good place, I felt. And by that time, our kids are a few years old. There were several altercations, legally wise, and he was finally at a good spot where I felt that he could parent the children without me. And I tried that once, and it was just bad. He had panic attack. And since he wasn't using, his panic attack was full blown. So, he was calling me saying crazy things about the kids, that he wanted to hurt himself and the kids. And just, it totally blew up. And to me, that was my bad on my part. I should have known that, not that he can't be a good dad, but that he needs more support than what he was getting. And I almost put too much on him. Like, okay, here's your kids. Like, don't do anything, when they scream and fight, don't get frustrated.
That's not your fault though. As, we think as a father, they should be able, but again, she said something that I really want to make sure you guys hear. He saw things that most humans never see. He was on the front lines. His panic attacks are going to make ours look like stomping up a step. His are like off the charts. The way they visualize things, the way they hear things, how they respond. So this isn't a normal person. It is not the man that you met and had children with.
Right. No. And that really sucks because when we planned kids, and probably for you, and you plan this family, I'm planning it with this person that I've known for 14 years, that I trust with my children on any given day. And then they come back and they're an entirely different person. I don't want to judge him, but also I can't be naive. Like, you can't can't be in a room with a screaming baby. You just can't right now. Like, it's not your fault, but I know that you can't. So I had to take on more responsibility when Mason was born, and I had to kind of just understand that when he was just really fussy, Lewis couldn't deal with him because he didn't want to. He just couldn't because his brain
mentally couldn't
normalize.
handle
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, it took a lot to get past that, and I think a lot of people think that you can just throw them in and give them a couple kids, and they'll just like snap back and this is how a regular dad's supposed to be. Like, they're just never going to be back where they are. So you have to now kind of uproot yourself and get on their level if you want it to work out, and kind of find a new normal. There's no the same how it works.
And in this mix, children don't understand it. I mean,
no, it was
barely. You guys don't understand it barely of
No.
why, and you don't have the experience or the education or the coping and all that. But then you have these children that are like, we don't even know what to do. So then it naturally makes it look like they're bad parents.
Absolutely.
They're bad dads.
Yeah.
They're bad individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not it at all. And so, where I want to, so how do you explain, like, how did you cope with your children? How did you keep that peace and preserve that fatherhood to your kids at that time? And then we'll kind of talk about what you do now. Like, they were young, weren't they?
Yeah. Aiden was 9.5 when it happened, and Addison was just a month away from being 7. Unfortunately, Aiden found his father. So he has that mental image, and to this day, he does not like to talk about it.
He doesn't like to open up about it.
No. I mean, he's a pretty closed off boy to begin with, but he doesn't like about it. Like, really, like, I can't bring up Douglas with him because he'll be like, I don't want to talk about it. And I could be saying something obviously nice, not wanting to talk about the situation, but just
in general, bringing that up.
Yeah, because me bringing up Douglas' name or story makes him think about
that day he found him.
And it makes him refer back to that day. So I'm hoping, obviously, one day that he'll just kind of break down and finally open up. But so okay, gotta talk louder.
Our producer is really bossy.
Yeah.
That's directly from Rick.
Oh,
Bossy.
So, and at this time, were the children with him? Were the children staying there that weekend? Is that how Aiden found him, or just?
No. I was dropping off our dogs to Douglas because he worked at a dog daycare at the time, so he was going to take them. And I was like, Aiden, go let the dogs in the house. Well, like a minute later, 30 seconds later, he comes back and he's like, Daddy's just sleeping on the floor, and the door's locked. And I just knew something was wrong, and so. And that's how we found him. So, like, I had to push Aiden through the window to get the door unlocked, and then he ran in after me. So, it was just horrible. So, I had to tell Addison, because Addison didn't see anything, but Aiden saw it all. So, it was
and at 9.5.
9.5.
You remember that.
Oh, yeah.
And for a boy, that is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, he had been deceased for probably at least 12 hours. So, he was cold and purple. I just remember his eyes. The eyes were the freakiest. So yeah.
How did you find out? What was that weekend like?
Yeah, our stories are really similar.
Really?
It's interesting that
They are very similar.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm thinking there's a lot more people out there that are.
Oh, there's a ton. And I think that I guess I would say I'm lucky that my situation was a little different with that, but he was supposed to have the kids, and my dad offered to watch them that night prior because he was off. So coincidentally, and I don't believe in coincidences, so everything happens for a reason.
Everything does happen for a reason.
Lewis dropped one of my kids off at with my dad, and I kept the other one because we lived right by her rec where they go to school. And it was just the weirdest thing. He had beat this whole addiction thing. He had been clean for over a year.
A while.
Over a year.
Yeah.
We went through this huge custody battle, and in my opinion, I feel like if he was going to relapse,
that would have been
that custody battle.
And to be honest,
for a while.
that's what we all thought.
Yeah, exactly.
That was when
waiting for it.
I had been out of the picture a little bit then, but as we were kind of watching we were watching this custody battle, and
it was just
totally
brutal. And to me, every day it was just like, oh, if he's gonna snap, he's gonna snap, and he's gonna relapse and go off the deep end. But he didn't. He made it. We dodged trial. We became friends at the end. He was at my house the night before it happened, and he just said, "I'll be here in the morning to pick up Nolan." Or Mason the same time always. And I'm like, okay, cool. and he never showed up. So I just assumed that he slept in. He didn't work. He was on disability from the VA. So I just went on about my day. I never would have thought that I should have called him, or I should have, he was happy when he left my house. And he said, I'm really glad we're friends, and I'm always going to love you. And I love my kids. I'll be here tomorrow. So, to me, it's
a normal night.
Normal night. And the next morning, I'm just at work at 10 a.m. and I get a call from his cousin, who never really calls me unless she needs something. And I ignored it, and I texted her and I said, hey, I'm at work. Do you need me? And she said, you have to call me. And I will never forget stepping outside of the office, and I answered the phone, and she was in tears, and she just said, Louis is dead. And I literally dropped the phone outside my office, and I just dropped to my knees, and I'm like, what am I supposed to tell my kids?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to go pick them up from school. I'm supposed to go. Look, now I'm tearing up.
Okay.
But like that, it instantly hit me. Like, our entire life is about to change, and it wasn't about me being selfish or like I'm gonna have to do everything he did. I just instantly knew I'm gonna have to look my kids in the eyes in the next 12 hours and tell them their dad died. And before I even knew what it was, I knew that it was something drug related, because what else would it be?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, they found him face down in his bedroom, and he had been there for 6-7 hours. And he lives with his dad and his grandmother. So his dad said, I passed his bedroom a bunch of times. I thought he was sleeping. I saw his keys at 6 a.m. and I just thought he wasn't going to go pick up Mason because maybe you guys worked something else out. I've been here the whole time. And he goes, I just thought I'd go in and wake him up and tell him to get up and do something today. And he was just throw up out of his mouth, and his phone was in his hand, and he was face down. I don't know what happened, Deidre. He said, I'm so sorry. And I left work and I flew over there, and the EMS was taking everything out. And I literally sat there crying on his bedroom floor for hours. And I finally pulled my kids out of school. And they were just so happy. Where's Daddy? Daddy was supposed to pick me up. And he told me he was going to pick us up this morning. What happened? And at the time, the autopsy showed that he had an enlarged heart. So that is what I rolled with before I got the toxicology report back. And I said, do you know what happens when people have a bad heart? And Mason being 6 at the time and Nolan being 5. You get sick and you can't breathe sometimes, and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, Daddy had a bad heart. And it was just like this really awkward silence. And my boyfriend, Patrick, was there with us. And they're just kind of looking at us, and I'm like, Daddy had a really, really bad heart. And they're just staring at me, and I'm like, do I say more? Like, I don't know how to do it.
I don't even know what
like,
am
I supposed to tell you what happened? I don't know.
Yeah.
And Mason just looked at me and he said, Mom, what happened to my dad? And I just you just get this rush of sweating and anxiety, and I had to muster the words, your daddy died, honey. Your daddy died. And I don't know what to say. And he just broke down, and he cried for 3 weeks straight every single night. And my 5-year-old asked me right after that, he said, can I just go to my room? And I said, sure. They completely handled it
Totally different.
Completely different. And I just held him, and I was sobbing because I didn't know what to say either. I was a complete shock to me. It was a shock to him. They had just saw him that day. It was his weekend, so he had him Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and he promised he'd be there Monday. I could not tell you I could not tell you why he thought that night. I don't know if he wanted to take an edge off, if he thought that he was good enough to have a little fun. Do I think he did it to take himself out of the world? Absolutely not. But do I think that he made a bad choice? His choices are his choices. I don't feel bad I don't feel guilty for that. I just know that I could have maybe supported him a little more. Maybe I should have did this, should have did that. So I just try to use that in my everyday life now. I try to help people a little more than I could have back then.
Yeah.
Again, people's choices are their choices, but I will never forget that day. I recently have told them how he died, because they have gone through several therapists. My youngest has anger issues, cannot be more than 5 feet apart from me because he thinks I will have a bad heart and I will die. So all these things go along with a spouse coming home and then trying to go into civilian life and then not getting the civilian life and then having to try to just find this new normal, and some of them never get to that new normal, and that's exactly what happened. And I think he faked it till he made it, but he never really made it. So I think a lot of people kind of sweep them under the rug, and they'll have to learn how to adapt, and they just don't. They don't have to learn to adapt. They want to, and if they can't, they won't. And that is the flat line from it all. And we honor him all the time. Birthdays, Veterans Day, Father's Day. He was extremely brutal to me. But the way I
Is
see
your
it
dad-
is he's not here anymore. So he can't defend himself. He can't say anything back to me. He got the consequences of his actions, unfortunately. And he loved his kids very much. And the day before he died, they knew that he loved him. And that is just what I roll with. It doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter how he made me feel. It matters how he made them feel and how I can continue to make them feel. And that is it. He's never going to come back to go one-on-one with me as we tell them who was better parent, who was the worst parent. That doesn't matter. So to me, I only tell them about the good. It doesn't matter about the bad because he is not here. So.
Well, and that's the thing, like you, and I think that this goes hand in hand with anyone in any situation of losing a spouse that has children, is you guys had those battles because they returned not as the same people. There were all of these other issues. There were all of this other medical and not being able to get help and all that. Those children, that's their daddy. Mm-hmm. No matter what. And I say this often, I'm going to really get a lot of backlash on this because I always talk about nobody wants to hear about your, mama drama and all of that. There are so many people that sit here and bash the dad and bash the mom and whatnot. And, you have that relationship and that's between you. But those children, that's their daddy or that's their mommy in some sense. So, they still see them as the hero. They still see them as, they're going to remember some of those bad. They're going to remember some of that stuff. But especially when they're not here anymore, honoring them. And so, and that's, we honor our veterans in all different ways. And we honor, we get this day once a year that is set aside to honor them. But you guys, and I love it. You both do birthday stuff. You both do, the graveyard pictures and stuff like that. That is to honor the man you knew and that he is the father to your children. And so why do you do that? That's why I think you do it. But what do you feel that has helped your children cope and preserve that puzzle piece of theirs that isn't here to speak for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, for me, we can only share so many memories all the time with them. And, that's what I try to do as much as I can, share the funny stuff that Douglas would do because he was just a goof and, and Addison's very much like him. But after he passed away, I would go to his gravesite right after church every single week and took the kids. And it got to the part where, I remember walking to the car and Aiden's like, oh, wait, I didn't say bye to Dad yet, and he would go back and say bye, So I think it was, I know for me,
it's healing.
To me, it's a therapeutic thing. I know some people don't like to go to grave sites, but for me, I do because it's my time alone and my time to process still and my time to grieve and be angry and be sad and all that, and just share what I'm going through. So for me, it's definitely
that's part of your healing process, and it's the children's healing process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
probably, the same for me. I mean, we probably don't go as often as we used to because they're still so young. So sometimes it's emotional, and sometimes they're having such a good day. I don't want to.
Yeah, you don't want to.
But it's a whole different mood. So
and plus, they're so young.
Exactly.
Your kids, and even my kids at the time. It's hard enough for an adult to process this.
I know,
death.
how explaining you talk about
and
it.
we got vocabulary to know, to
you have
to
that
and navigate. These
yeah.
kids don't. They don't have anything, and they have no idea what they're feeling, and they don't have the words to even try to describe it. So it's so hard for them. So that's one definitely. You just focus on the fun stuff, the positive stuff, and then just to. I try to keep that memory alive as much as possible. I talk about him probably at least a couple times a week, and and
because the reality is, I feel like as they get older, that memory, no matter what we do, is going to fade.
It's going to fade. Yeah,
it is.
They're not always going to remember him as fresh as they remember him now. So I can do a birthday every year. I can do so many things, but that picture of him and those things that he used to do to them are just gonna fade, and that's a natural thing. And it makes me sad. So I try so much to wait, remember
I know
this picture, remember this time, and
but you can't preserve it. And I can tell you, I was 28 when my father passed away, and this was my stepdad, but he raised me. He came into my life when I was 5, and when I turned 15, it became brutal. He was a major alcoholic. We're talking, my mother packed his stuff. I'm sure Glenn has packed his stuff and put it outside. I can't even tell you how many times he'd come back on a Saturday, do the honey-do. Like, I remembered all the bad things because I was older. It was, he then did get into drugs, and for the safety of my brother, who at that time was a minor, my mom said this relationship is over due to this. And I had those words. I understood why, but I was still angry. I was furious. And long story, my dad, because of alcoholism, he was climbing off a boat on 4th of July, which had always been a magical holiday in our household.
Wow.
Yeah.
He fell off the back of a boat. He hit his head. He went to the hospital, an injury that should have been able to recover. Due to his severe alcoholism, his body started shutting down. And it then led him into having a stroke and dying. And I can tell you, I was 28. I didn't even go say bye to him because I was so angry at that time because I couldn't put words to go, what do you mean he's dying? Why? He chose this, he did that. But I was an adult and I didn't even have the understanding of the right words.
Yeah.
Children, on the other hand, like, there's no way to even come up with the words to say.
I couldn't say the words to them, like what he died from. I couldn't say the words to him for years. I couldn't say it. All I said is that, he put bad stuff in his body and it made his heart stop. And so that's how I worded it. And it took a long time for me to finally mouth the words that it was, drugs. And so, and I hate telling them that. I really do. But
so, thank you guys for sharing your story. I want to move on to a little bit of a happier. So where are your lives now? Years later, you have a baby who's still newbornish.
Yeah.
I mean, how old is this baby?
He is 2.5 months old.
So
He's super cute.
And you have remarried.
I have remarried.
And
yes.
so, the title of our show was Life Does Go On. We want to honor them. We, through any tragedy, whether it's a death or a divorce or a loss of a child or a loss of a spouse or, all of these things that happen, even like sometimes people look at a tragedy of losing a job or losing, things that are comfortable. When your life is shaken, no matter what you define that as shaken, life still has to go on. There still has to be a next day. And so I love how you guys still honor them and still see them as heroes and paint that to the children. But then you're having babies, you're getting married, babies, you're finding that life and allowing it to continue to happen. And that's so very important. So I love that. So I don't think that we have any questions. Did you have any questions you want to jump on real quick? Josh, by the way, back about 15 minutes ago when I think I said how do you get the kid or how do you transition your children? He commented, make your kids do push-ups.
Douglas would
My
say
kids
that
do
all the
push-ups.
time.
To be fair.
Douglas would say that
So
all
They
the
do
time.
push-ups.
So,
All right, so Jake, we got a couple comments over in the watch party. So Jake, where'd he go? Jake Stetler. If you had the experience and education to help, you typically wouldn't because of your personal relationship with them. There's no amount of effort and help from you that would have changed anything for them.
I agree. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so Jake.
And that's something, too. I mean, how do you guys... We talked about how they felt that they weren't enough. And did you guys ever feel that you weren't enough to be able to take care of them and be able to get them through the hard time they were going through?
I remember though, I mean, especially there at the end, I had a lot of resentment towards Douglas, and I was being very, just not sympathetic towards him, not giving him the grace that he wanted to deserve, because he is human, but of course I'm human, but I did put some expectations on him, just didn't give him that grace, and so that's probably where I failed as a wife, where I didn't lift him up when he needed it most. But then again, it's just like on the flip side for me, it's just I felt a lot of guilt not being able to help him. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't solve this problem. So.
Yeah, and I would say pretty similar to you is I feel after the fact, after him struggling so much, and then we're not together, but we're going to co-parent that whole time, and then even after he died, I don't feel guilty for what he did. Obviously, his choices are his choices, and anything I could have done would not have changed what he did that night. However, kind of like she said, I will always have guilt that maybe I should have answered that phone call and he was asking for help. I got to this point where I was just like, no, you chose that over your kids. We're done here.
Yeah,
like,
don't
Well,
want
and
to
that's what I'm saying with that anger I had.
Here.
You reached that point though. Like
Right.
I was so angry, I didn't even go say bye to my dad because I'm like, nope, you chose alcohol and drugs over us. It takes you to get healthy, to go, you know what? He didn't choose that. It took over.
Well,
And
I was going to say, I'm a little on the verge of still the addiction disease thing, but aside from that.
Yeah.
So I have gone through a lot of trauma counseling, and so I do believe, however, I'm out of it. I don't know what I would feel if I walked right into another relationship like that, if I would. But I personally feel that once it becomes a disease, that the choice is over. However, I do feel that God can change anything. And that, you can get better, but do I ever think you'll be the same? Right. And I do think that, I say this often, everything you ever want is on the other side of fear. Drugs and alcohol are covering up a lot of fear. Oh, yeah. And when you pull that away, you've got some terrified people there, and that's hard to come by. So
Another comment. This is from Christy Ann Owen.
Oh,
it's specifically toward Jen, but it applies to both of you.
Oh, she's wonderful.
I know, and I know both of them, right? So it says your strength is beyond comprehension. Both of you and your families have endured so much, and you've shown so much faith throughout it all.
Yeah, and that's what and but you got the faith that you gripped onto, and your children were your pillars as well. It's amazing where you stand now and where your stories are and what you're doing, and that you still see them as the people that they were. And that's what I respect and what I love most.
Yeah. And that's what
it's hard, but
I miss.
It's gonna be hard though.
I miss
that.
Are you kidding? When we're in normal relationships, there's days where I'm like, you will not believe.
I know,
so that's always,
and that's kind of where I'm at, because sometimes when I'm doing things, they're just like, oh, I remember Daddy did this, and in my head, I remember that exact situation, and it wasn't as nice as they think, and I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
Your dad was great. It's fine. So it's like
it never goes away.
To have to just put that aside and realize you are here now. You're not there. You're not going back there. Mm-hmm. You're just talking about how good he was.
And that's because you're human. You're gonna think
anyway. So
all right. Well, we're gonna close up. Unless our producer has something else, because he's over there looks like a penguin, Raven's hands all over the place. So thanks for joining us tonight. We will keep the comments open. Of course, you can message us anytime. And we can continue the conversation. I did tag both of these individuals. So if you have any direct questions, or just want to send them messages of encouraging or telling them how awesome they are, that is encouraged. Go ahead. But also to any veterans that may be watching, thank you. Any servicemen or women or families, the families that are going through this, because honestly, the wives and the girlfriends and the families at home, they're in the military just as much as the person serving.
I always say that, where I was like,
deal.
we were in the military, and they're like, oh, you're in the military? I'm like, well, no, not me.
No, you're in it just
but
as
I'm
much.
in it because I was married to
it.
Just
as much.
I consider myself.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm getting a finger.
Well, a closing note. If you feel isolated, if you feel like you need help, please reach out to someone. Absolutely. There are resources out there.
There are a ton. And I actually started to make a list.
There are people out there, and there are people that love you right now. So, to me, that's the main message. Mm-hmm. Don't fall into the pit.
Yeah.
Reach your hand up.
Yeah.
And someone will pull you out.
Yeah, yep, definitely. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. And we will continue the conversation online.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Just gotta leave. This Sip of Solidarity podcast is a copyright of the 330 To Go Media Network. Thank you for tuning in.